All right, all right. Welcome to another edition of Living Boldly with Purpose. I am Dr. B. I'm your host. We have Brandon G on today. Oh gosh, if I could say that I'm excited just a little bit, you're probably hearing it in my tone of my voice. It is because I am. Brandon and I have been able to spend some time together. He's been helping me and coaching me, and he is a speaker, an author, a person who genuinely wants people to succeed in every way, every day, all the time. And you just don't get to have people to get to talk to that this way. So I want to get to so much. We always start with their story and letting them do their story and talking about his life, in which I don't know all of it. So I'm excited about having that. But then to be able to chop it up where if this is a podcast this might be your first podcast. Of course, I want you to subscribe. Of course, I want you to hit notifications because there's so many more. But this is going to be one of those, Brandon, that we get to rewind, stop, play, all those different kind of things. When I started, watching podcasts and trying to learn from folks, this is like how dumb I was. I'll just kind of expose it a little bit. Like I'm trying to take notes and I'm trying to write everything down and I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss a thing. And I'm writing all these notes that I can't read back. And then I realized I can hit pause and stop it and then write it down neat. But no, I'm trying to get it all done. So for those of you watching right now, before we get going, if you're watching this as a recorded podcast, then absolutely. If there's something you hear that you want to emulate or something you hear that goes, oh, I didn't know that, please push pause, write it down, pick it back up. Hey, some of you guys might be walking, some of you guys might be driving, and you can't do that. But the number one thing to it, I guess, is you can just go back and watch it again as many times as you need to. And so I just have this belief that what's going to happen today is something that can change your life, because we're going to hear through some of his stories, the things that he was willing to do, and being the youngest person around that did it, being the person who said, I have tenacity, I'm not going to procrastinate, I have that grit, I have that willingness to make things happen, to be one of the top speakers in the entire world. And so you're going to get some gems today. This is going to be one that if this is something you're looking into doing, something that you want to do, trying to figure out how my purpose works with it, it's going to be a great thing. So Brandon, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time out of your day, as busy as I know you are, to be on this podcast today and with our guest, and being able to just give a whole bunch of cool information. But I want to start with your story. I tell my guests all the time, you can't get it wrong. It's your story. Sometimes they're scared to tell their story. I know you're not, but some of my guests sometimes are. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's your story. You can't get it wrong unless your mom watches. And then if you made up a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to get in trouble with mom if you told a whole bunch of fake stuff. But why would you do that? Because your story is so incredible. So the floor is yours. Go ahead and take your time. Tell your story the way that you would want us to hear it.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see the name of your podcast. It says Living Boldly with Purpose. And a guy who influenced so much of my story, he ends his seminars by saying, I'm so sick of people trying to find their purpose. He's like, you got one purpose in life, and that's to make this world better than when you got here. He said, when you leave here, your one purpose is to leave it better than when you got here. And so, having dinner conversations with you a couple of weeks ago, it's clear to me that through the many different endeavors you've had in your life, that you have clearly left this world a better place with all the things that you've done. And knowing where you're trying to go past all the things you've done is very inspiring as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to get it done. I'm more excited now than ever. At 60 years old, I'm like, I got to have another 20 years where this is just going to blow up and be fun. So,
cool. Yeah, I think a big part of where my story started was seeing people who were in their 60s and hearing from their experiences. So when I was 18, 19 years old, I interned in Rumson, New Jersey. So it's right on the Jersey Shore, a very wealthy town. Like Bruce Springsteen had a house around there. And I go there. I grew up in a place where there was one country club in a 30-mile radius. So I didn't I didn't know a lot of wealth. I mean, you could make $150,000 where I grew up, and you were looked at as someone who was like really, really
Okay.
wealthy. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then where I live now, it's like if you make that, it's like you're getting by, but not by much, you know? And so obviously there's inflation and stuff that goes into that. But where I moved to, there was 8 country clubs in the town that I moved to. So there was one
Wow.
in a 30-mile radius, and then I moved to a town where there was 8 country clubs in one town. And so if you're not sure what a country club is, it's a very wealthy place where people play golf. There's things like racquetball, there's swimming pools, and it's an exclusive place where people pay a lot more to be members there. And so it was interesting being exposed to that when not only I would do internships, but when I first got out of college. And so when I was in college, there was a guy who came and spoke at my school. He was in his mid 60s. His name was Lou Miller, and he talked about how he wanted to be the best in the world at what he did. And so all he did was focus on learning, observing, shadowing, studying, and meeting the best people in the world at what he wanted to be the best at. So he wanted to be the best golf instructor in the world. So he started learning from the best of the best. People like Bob Tosky, Butch Harmon. I know many people on here would not know these names, but picture the people who are the best in your industry, and then imagine spending a day with them. Imagine spending an hour with them. How much you would learn at an accelerated rate. And so that guy in his 60s exposed me to a different way of learning. I paid a lot of money for school. I have a master's. I have a master's degree. I learned more from his concept of studying the people who have what you want than I learned from anything in school. And that's not a knock on school. You know, the teachers try to do their best to educate you. I learned a lot of life lessons from many of the teachers I had. In fact, I wouldn't be in public speaking if it wasn't for my public speaking teacher. um, so I owe a lot of credit to school, but the concept of learning, I really learned from this guy, Lou Miller. And I do want to give a shout out to one of my teachers, though, because in speech class, I would get C's and D's, and I couldn't get above a C, no matter how hard I tried. So one day I got a D, and I tried so hard on this speech. I went up to my teacher after. I said, "Hey, what do I got to do to get a better grade?" And she says, "Well, Brandon, you seem to be a one tone the entire time, and the engagement of us is not very good when you're just level like that." And I was like, "Okay, well, how do I fix that?" And she said, "Well, Brandon, if I were you, I'd talk about something you're passionate about." So I was like, "What in the world am I passionate about?" And so I decided to do a speech on my childhood crush, Shania Twain. And
Oh.
yeah, and I felt like I was cheating when I was putting together that speech. I was just so into her story, her music videos, the sound of her voice. And so it was just easy to put that speech together. And so not only did I get an A on that speech, but multiple people from that class still remember that speech over a decade later. So I went from the kid who couldn't get a good grade in that class, the kid who was at one tone, the kid who was monotone his whole life, to now all of a sudden I was memorable, to now all of a sudden I was one of the highest graded, to now all of a sudden there was excitement in my speech. And I was like, wow. So something I thought I was really bad at, all of a sudden I became really good at because I talked about something I was passionate about.
Mhm.
And so that really opened up my doors towards like exploring things that I was curious about. And I went to school to be a golf pro. I wasn't very good at it. Like I didn't really understand the customer service side. I didn't really understand the just really taking care of people side. But then the next internship, the next summer, I ended up working for a guy who taught me how to take care of people. And so I was curious because he would just have guys handing him 20s. They would just be flipping 20s to him. Of course, as a young college kid, you're like, hey, how do you how do
Yeah.
you do that? And so he would teach me. He'd be like, um, when this person comes in, you go visit them in this hole and ask them if they want anything. After the round, you make sure you clean their clubs. And he would tell me all these little things to really make sure that you were taking care of people. And so um, I was really curious about how much I was learning between the ages of 18 to 21. I was learning a lot with girls. I was learning a lot with customer service. I was learning a lot more about business and how to make money. I was working at these country clubs where you would meet all these very successful people. I worked at Rumson Country Club, Pinehurst, and the Golf Club of Cape Cod. It's got a different name now. All before I was 21 years old, and these are very, very wealthy courses. And so you're meeting people who are billionaires. You're meeting people who are some of the high ups in companies like Coca-Cola, and things like that. And so that was kind of my beginning phase of starting to learn past the high school era. And then I just started applying that top 10 rule of what I learned from that guy in his 60s. And next thing you know, I'm on the phone with the number 3 guy on my list, and he told me everything I needed to do to be successful in my first career. And at 26 years old, 6 years later, I was on the same list as him, top 50 in America at what I did. And I was looked at as one of the best in the world. And being the youngest on that list, I was like, there's a method to the madness here. If you want to be great, strive to be great and learn from the greats. And
Yes.
so with public speaking, I've taken that same mentality, and the mentor I talked about with purpose. When I met him when I was 23, I knew that that was someone that I needed to learn from. And I kept going to his conferences. I took his speaker school when I was 25, and then I hired him as a business coach. And then next thing you know, I'm teaching a speaker school 3, 4 years after that. And then 3, 4 years later, I do stand-up comedy. We've done the speaker schools all around the country. Next year, we're going to Greece. Um, and then I've been fortunate enough to meet incredible people like Dr. B.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, there's so much to unpack in this, and because of the things that you were able to do. And thinking of some of the things that you said about, even picking this top 10 list and growing, but before 19, I know that when I think about identity, right? Identity is that person that you believe that you are that is able to achieve these big things. Has your identity always been this, hey, I'm going to be the top of this. I'm great at the, because you kind of said in your, as you were doing some boring speeches, I guess, that, you were monotone, and, was your identity way different then? And then like, what grew that to the person that you are today?
Well, 100%. I worked really hard at becoming good at golf, at becoming good at basketball, and I was never really that great. I was good, I could shoot better than probably 99% of people. But there's a difference between shooting good and being a really good player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the physicality of basketball always slowed me down. I was a really small kid growing up, so the physicality of basketball, I've just never been able to catch up, no matter how athletic I was. And but I worked really hard on my shot, and that taught me the process of like just getting better at something. Maybe I wasn't the best basketball player, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if I make 20 foul shots in a row. You know what I mean? And it's kind of one of those things that started to teach me the process of work ethic, but I really wasn't that good. Like I barely played on my church league team. You know what I mean? And then with golf, I was one of the best in school, and I would get close to winning some big tournaments, but in comparison to the Division 1 golfers, I wasn't that great. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of one of those things where it was just like, why am I working so hard at something that I'm not that great at? And so
Yeah.
when I was 20 and I I learned from this guy Lou Miller about like if you want to be great, learn from the greats. That's when things kind of changed because I had work ethic. Work ethic was not my problem. Like I was willing to study for the quizzes, for the test in high school and all that stuff. And when would I do the best? When I had a great teacher. You know what I mean? But not just a great teacher, when I was also curious about getting really good at whatever that was. So I started to understand that if I could take the same work ethic I had with something I was curious about and then combine that with learning from the best, then I could probably do something pretty special. So once I learned this from this guy, Lou, I knew that fitness was something I understood. Like I understood movement of the body very well. And I had been studying it for probably about 3 years up to that point, ever since I was 17. And I got some certifications where I was learning from some of the higher up people. And then it really like planted in my mind when I saw this guy speak. I was like, I could be the best at this.
Mhm.
And so I wrote this poem. It's very short, but it's probably the best poem I'll ever write. And it's called Becoming Great. I thought I was good until I saw great. It was then when I understood what achieving my dreams would take. And all that means is you could think you're really good at something until you see someone who's better. And then when you see someone who's better, you start to understand the little things that you could do to become better. So, and so like, for example, shot put. What is a very far shot put for a high schooler?
50 feet. They're the top of the top. If they're in their late, or I guess 38 to 45, they're almost good enough to beat everybody. But yeah, if you hit 50 feet in high school, you're
And then
amazing.
what are the people in the Olympics doing?
72 is like the world record, and it's a heavier shot than the high school one too.
So you're in high school and you're shot put in 50 feet. There's nobody in high school who's beating you. Like you're just dusting
Yeah.
everybody. Everybody's patting you on the back. They're looking at you as a role model, an icon. But then you spend a day at the Olympics and they let you shadow some of the gold medalists, the silver medalists, the bronze, and you start to see not only how much farther they're throwing, but you start to see how much more work they're putting in towards their diet, their prep work, the conversations with their coaches.
Yeah.
And you start to pick up on these little things that you could do better to be able to go from 50 to 55 and then maybe even 55 to 60. And so that was the thing that changed everything because I thought I could make six figures because I saw my dad doing that and I thought that was like as far as you could really go. I didn't really know making $1 million was possible. I didn't really know making $100 million. I didn't even like the $1 billion things. I just thought that was. I didn't even know if that was a real thing. Like I think back into my high school self. I'm like, I don't even really know if I thought it was possible to make $1 billion. Like I know people did it, but I just didn't even think that was a thing. And then um, when I met this guy Lou Miller, and he talked about learning from the greats, all he did in that speech was talk about the conversations he had, what he learned from them, what he felt like before he reached out to them, the uncomfortableness, and so I was like, well, I can do that. Like, if you're telling me I could learn at an accelerated rate by reaching out to someone that my heart's going to be beating like this, that I'm worried about what they think of my email, I could get over that if you're telling me I could learn at that fast of a rate. And so once I started seeing greatness, I mean, I was in the golf fitness world. And so when I get to get on the phone with the guy who's training some of the top pro golfers in the world, and he tells me what I need to do, now all of a sudden I'm doing a research-based study in college. Like I just got my college friends. I start doing a research-based study there. I start designing programs for my friends in college. So now I'm running a strength and conditioning program unofficially while I'm a junior in college. and
Wow.
but what happened was I just didn't stop at this one guy. Shortly after that, I go to Duke University and I get to shadow the whole Duke University golf team. I meet the coaches, the strength and conditioning coach spends a half day with me. And then listen to this. I couldn't believe that. I could not believe this. People say, Brandon, why do you give so much? It's because people gave me more than I could ever ask for when I was younger. And so I get done with the mentorship from the Duke University strength and conditioning coach. And by the way, he didn't ask for a dime. He didn't even ask for a thank you. All he was doing was giving back what others gave to him. And he told me, he said, if I was in your shoes, I would want someone like me to be able to ask questions, to be able to learn from. And he's like, if I just have to give a half day to be able to help someone like you out, I'd be happy to do that. And so he sent me all of the programs of the Duke University golfers.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
So
so cool.
now I'm starting to understand how to program for division, like the highest of high levels of Division One. Like this is a guy who's got national championships, and now he's sending me the programs. And so it was crazy because my senior year, I worked with the guy. He was a great friend of mine, but obviously I helped him out in the gym, and I would design his programs. We would work out together, and I worked with the guy who got second in the national championships, and he led his team to the national championship. So they won the national championship.
Oh, nice.
And so here I am, a senior in college, and now I got to see what it was like to see someone progress into a national champion and lead his team to doing that. So all of a sudden, in a 2-year window, I'm starting to understand the process of what it's like to, really build towards something special. So I also interned at the #1 gym in America, voted by Men's Health at one point, Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, where my boss was the Red Sox strength and conditioning consultant when they won a World Series the year before, right? This was all I was doing. I was like, who's the best? Let me go learn from them. So I was like, okay, that guy was a strength and conditioning consultant for the Red Sox. They won the World Series. Let me go learn from him.
Mhm.
So I do it. And of course, I would have to work for free. So I interned for free, and then I would have 2 other jobs on the side to make money in. Yeah. And so a lot of people are like, oh, well, like, I don't know if I want to work for free. I'll tell you what, the internships I worked for free, I learned, I wouldn't say every one of them, but the majority of them I learned more than the ones I got paid for. There was a couple internships that I got paid for that I learned a ton. But everyone that I worked for free, I learned a ton, because if I wasn't learning, why would I be there?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just thinking about the educational opportunities and doing it for free. And you think of like how much money we'll spend at a university to sit in class. You have a master's, I have a doctorate. The amount of time that I sit in classrooms from professors that may or may not have ever done what they're teaching. And then you
Mhm.
get to go in and sit with somebody who is making people world champions in their respective sports, and you get to do that and just sit there and take that in. I do have one question that kind of goes with your identity piece, and that's your parents and how they interact with you. Because right now I see so many of these parents or coaches or friends or family who have decided this is what your purpose is for you. Like I see like some of these kids where I'm doing a high school, and I got track kids that are super talented in track, but their mom tells me that they're ranked in basketball. And so that they're ranked in the state of Colorado in basketball. They're, the number 16-year-old, number 14-year-old, number 54. I'm like, who ranks this in the first place? The guys that you're paying. And
Yeah.
then I go, what? But your son is 5'8", and he weighs, however many pounds. And I don't care how much he dribbles. I don't care how much he's ranked. I can get him a D1 scholarship in track, but he's not going to see a D1 court ever, not at 5'8". And so the talent is part of it. I mean, and having good talent. But how was your identity shaped with your parents, and did they just let you go do all this because you kind of figured this out yourself? It seems like.
Well, I think that's, and I may not be the most qualified to give advice on this, but I can definitely give perspective on this.
Okay.
So I think one of the toughest parts about growing up from the ages of 0 to 18 is you have so many people in your life that feel like they have to tell you what to do, telling you what to do. And it's not just parents, it's like your teachers are telling you what to do. They're giving you the homework. You're supposed to show up at a class at a certain time, and you're constantly being told what to do by other people. And so what happens in my mind is I believe that the creative part of yourself, the part that can explore and be curious, sometimes it can get trapped. Not
Yeah.
always, you know, and this is where people who have studied this a little bit more, and especially have raised kids, can give a little bit more perspective on this. But I believe that the number one thing that people should have under 18 is the ability to explore curiosity, because when you can explore things that you're curious about, you can start to see if it's something that you're interested in. And if it's something you're interested in, you're probably going to do what all the parents and teachers want you to do, which is to put your all into that. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people get lost in high school where they don't find something they're interested in, and then they find something like alcohol, like marijuana, like cigarettes, or vapes are a big thing, and it's something that they get a high off of, and all of a sudden then that takes their interest. But I think if we push things, like Andre Agassi was a, a big spokesman for this later in his life, when he didn't know really any other way. Like, he was told, this is what to do, get really good at it and go. And I don't think he got to explore other things like other people may have. And I can speak from my perspective. If that would that help if I speak
Yeah,
from my
that'd be very
perspective?
helpful. Yeah.
So for me, my parents did so many great things, like so many incredible parents. They do so many great things. And when you're talking about what did they do really good, because they, you know, Ed talks a lot about how things are caught, not taught, right?
Mhm.
And so I caught I caught trustworthiness, loyalty. I saw that growing up. My parents would never cheat on each other. Like, it's just something, like, it just wasn't a thing. So I saw parents who were extremely loyal to each other. And so that was something that was instilled in me growing up. They had this discipline that the more that I spent time away from them, the more I realized that they had this discipline level that most people don't have, like probably in the 99 percentile. Like, my mom was just always on it, like many moms. I mean, she was just always there. She knew the times of everything. I mean, 3 kids, I can't even imagine. And then my dad quit his career at, like, when I was probably 5 years old. He would drop me off to daycare, or pre-K, whatever it was. Whenever you're around 4 or 5 years old, he would drop me off there, and then he would go to his university class, and he would study for the career that he was switching to, because he hated his previous career. And so, what better time to switch than when you just had your 3rd kid? I think my sister was probably 6, I was probably 4 or 5, and then my brother was probably 1. And
Yeah.
my dad was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going back to school. This is going to be the best move for the family. And so I saw that. That was one of my first memories as a kid, was just my dad going after his dream. And and I saw that all throughout my middle school, my high school career, when a lot of people's parents were out partying almost every Friday, Saturday. I remember my dad being in the basement studying for his next test.
Oh, so
Yeah,
cool. So
yeah.
cool. What an example that, from your perspective and being able to see that in training. If you're a parent here and thinking about, the kids that you have and what's the best example. And I love how you talked about the experiences to be able to find that curiosity, to be able to explore and be able to see different things and to see hey man, what am I good at? What do I do have the talent for? Even though, that you think, okay, I'm good at a few things, because all of us are good at a whole bunch of things, but all of us can't be great at a whole bunch of things, right? And so being able to be curious to figure out what that is, Now you talked about in your story that you're fitness, you're in the golf thing, and now when I see you, you're this world class speaker. What transitions you from, hey, being in the golf business and being world class there to, hey, wait a minute, there's something else that I want to switch over to.
I just knew the process. I knew the process. I was always interested in personal development. I think the reason why I went hard into the golf fitness world is because I started studying personal development when I was 18, 19, 20. And I joined this. I can't even remember the last time I told this story. I joined this network marketing company, like a lot of people probably did when they were younger. And I hated it. I was like, this makes no sense to me. But I stayed in it for a little bit because I loved the personal development side. They would have us read these books, they would show us these motivational videos. And I got to a point, I was like, I'm just going to apply what I'm learning from these guys into the career that I'm actually interested in. And it was just, to me, success is very easy if you explore what you're curious about, you
Mhm.
study who the best is, and then you apply what the best says to do. So when I talk to high school students, I teach them about CBA. I said, your CBA is the degree you could get the rest of your life. Curiosity, best, and then apply what the best say to do. And so I think once I started to learn how good you can get at something when you're learning from the best and you're applying what they say, I started to explore, was there something more? And so I got to a point when I was starting to get, pretty well noticed in my field. Like, just to give some context, they typically say most people won't travel more than 5 miles for a personal trainer. I started having people who were traveling about an hour to come see me, to work with me. Yeah. So it kind of got to the point where once the virtual stuff started hitting, I was working with people from all over the place, like not even just the United States. Like, I didn't work with this guy, but I had a legitimate conversation about potentially working together with the son of Louis Vuitton.
Oh,
the
wow.
the son of the guy who's the CEO of Louis Vuitton, who's CEO of one of their companies. And so I just started getting introduced to a lot of really high end people, and I was training a lot of very high end CEOs, CFOs. I was working with the former CFO of Honeywell. That's like the thing that's in your house, right?
Mhm.
That controls the air. And so I was just meeting all these very successful people through the personal training world, and my curiosity was really starting to spark, like, is there something more? And so I looked into getting a gym, and I got to the point, I was like, if I get a gym, the most I can see this doing is about 1 to 3 million a year. And I just, it didn't excite me. And then in 2021, I went to this conference, and it was the 10x exit, and it talked about thinking about the exit of your business. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to think about the exit of my business, I might as well think big, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I knew from the golf fitness world, it took me from 17 to about 28 at that point in my life to get to where I was. And so I was like, if it took me 11 years to get here, I know that there's a lot of things I'm going to have to do in my next endeavor. That's
Mhm.
probably going to take another 10-ish years. And so I took a deep breath and I said, let me break down $1 billion. And so
Okay.
I started just breaking down the number. I had no idea what the product, what the service would be. I just said, let me break down $1 billion. And at the time, I was mentoring high school and college students for free. I had a 5 to 8 week program. I messed around with the time periods, but they would meet with me twice a week, and I would give them homework assignments. And so I'd work with high school and college students. I probably had anywhere from 60 to 100 people go through that over the 2 years, and they would be in small groups of like 5 to 12-ish people. And so I turned that into a book called Skip College, Read This. I just released that about a month or two before the workshop I was in. And I started breaking down $1 billion. And I had one number that kind of clicked with what I'd been pursuing on the side. And so it was $100,000 times 10,000. And that equaled $1 billion. So I was like, so if we can get $10,000 from 100,000 units, how could that look? And I was like, well, the average college tuition is much higher than 10,000,
Mhm.
depending on what state, depending on what level, you're talking 30, 50, upwards to 100 plus thousand. And so I was like, if I can figure out a way to get tuition to $10,000 a year, and then we have 100,000 units, I think 10,000 is a good size for a university. So if we can get 10 different universities with people paying 10,000 a year, then we can get $1 billion. And now I know what a lot of people would say. Well, how the hell would you do that? It's like, well, that's why I've been spending 4.5 years trying to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
And I still got plenty of time. I that 10-year thing, I gave myself 10.5 years. So I still give myself 6 more years to figure it out. But that's how that $1 billion vision came to life. Was I just felt like there was so much more I could do. And if I applied the concepts from my previous career with the big vision, then maybe I could figure this out.
Wow. That's so cool. When you think like it's success leaving clues and you're breaking down what a possibility is, where most people just start and just see, well, we'll see what happens. You said, no, I'm not going to see what happens. I'm going to have intention. I'm going to have a plan. One thing I love to ask is you make it seem so simple, like it's so easy. It's just you've broken it down, you do the work, you have the discipline. Are there times when you kind of feel like or have felt like I can't do this, or this is hard, or this isn't, like today I don't feel like doing what I need to do to be able to do that? How do you get past some of those days? I think that's what shuts a lot of people down is they have this vision, this dream, but then life takes over and they don't continue it.
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, there's plenty of times where I'm doubting myself. I'm like, what the heck? But I think the reason I'm more excited about my vision, I wouldn't say more. I think the reason I'm just as excited about the vision I set in July of 2021, in December of 2025, I think the reason why I'm just as passionate about it as I was then is because I thought so much about what life would look like throughout the process, not the end result. That's the problem I struggled with my first career, that you probably were looking for the reason why I switched. My first career, I was pretty much doing everything I dreamed of. Like, I mean, I think the only thing that I didn't do, which I probably could have did if I stuck with it another couple of years, was take a player to the Masters. But I've been to the Masters like I don't know how many times, and that has been enough to me.
Just to be
and
there, yeah.
and I'm going again this year. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's like that probably would have been the only thing, but I got to work with the pros. Like I worked for two bosses who worked with pros, so I got to see what that process was like. When I was on my own, I was working with people who were pros and, working towards getting to the level where they really wanted to be. But I just felt so lonely and unfulfilled when I was at the peak of my career.
Mm.
And I was just like, man, that next mountain that I'm thinking about climbing, I just want to climb it with a massive group of people so we can grow with each other along the way. And that was the big difference. Having had success in one field, I realized that the cool part is not the end. The cool
Yeah.
part is what happens along the way. And so I designed this vision to be able to grow with people along the way. So if you look at my hashtags on Instagram, it's always growing together, growing together, growing together, growing together, because that's what I'm trying to do. And I thought so much about how cool it would be to grow together with people, not only with their endeavors, but with this vision that I voice out there. Like I have probably said my vision 1, 2, 3,000 times out there to the world in the last 4.5 years. And that's the thing. I'm not willing to voice it out. And the big reason I want to voice it out is because I want people to see someone who's going after their dream. If I don't achieve it, I think everybody who's been following me is okay with that because they have been able to see the incredible things that have happened. Listen, because of this vision, I've had a personal development conference in Stamford, Connecticut, 5 years in a row. I've been able to interview my favorite comedian. I've been able to interview a guy that Simon Cowell, this is a different guy than my favorite comedian, a guy that Simon Cowell said was the second most talented person he'd ever seen on top of Leona Lewis. So I got to interview that guy at my conference. I got to interview Alex Morton, who in my mind is the millennial version of Tony Robbins and a guy that I've looked up through all throughout my 20s. And so I got to interview people like that at my conference, and my friends got to learn from those people. And so that was really cool. I've gotten to host 2 TEDx conferences where I've been able to help people, TEDx Stanford events, where I've been able to help 15 speakers get their ideas worth spreading out there to the world. And I've taught 35 speaker schools now. And we've done those in Florida, Bedford Springs, Pennsylvania, Toronto, Canada, Chicago, Laguna Beach, California, Austin, Texas, New York, and then where I live, Stamford, Connecticut, a ton of times. And now this week, I'm in talks with the Wharton School of Business to do a speaker school with their students. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, it's because I voiced this out that I've been able to get the opportunities to grow together with people and this vision. I don't know if this vision is going to happen, but I can tell you what, Dr. B, this is probably the one thing that you want to know by asking this question. No matter how bad things are, the thing that has kept pushing me and that I believe will keep pushing me, you never know. Like there's a chance that I could fade away from this vision, but chances are probably not. If I'm still here 4.5 years later, just as excited as I was back then. This is what pushes me. This is why I believe most people give up on their dreams, their visions, their goals, is because they don't have something that will excite them enough to be able to push through the moments when they don't want to push anymore. So, for example, I worked a 15.5-hour day yesterday. And it's one of those things that is something that just seems to be a normal thing, and it's not something I recommend. Like, I don't recommend that to anybody. Why would I recommend that to anybody? But here's the thing. I would rather be doing something that lights me up for 15.5 hours than doing something that I hate for 8 hours a day. And that's just me. I'm not saying what's right or wrong, because there's a good chance that you could be a nurse and kind of like it and work 3 12-hour shifts a week and have 4 days off where you can do whatever you want, that you'll be more fulfilled than chasing after your dream, depending on the person you are. For me personally, I love chasing after something. And so I would rather spend the 15.5 hours than doing something I love than doing 8 hours with something I really don't want to be doing. And so why do people get so tired after 8-hour days of a 9 to 5? It's because they don't like what they're doing. Yeah. It's easy for me to go all day because I like what I'm doing. and there is plenty of stuff I do that I don't like, but I like where I'm going towards. And so the big vision I have that pushes me through those days, and not every day is a 15.5-hour day. That was just yesterday. Not every day is like that. The thing that pushes me through those days is one day I have this goal that on Fridays, the students have one class, and it's called Fired Up Fridays. And instead of going to an arena for a basketball game, the students go to the arena every Friday. Every freaking Friday, they go to the arena and they get fired up. They get so fired up, and it's not from a basketball game. It's not from someone making a swish or kicking a field goal or anything like that. They get fired up from a speaker who has done some inspiring things with their life, with their career. And that speaker drops an immense amount of value to everybody in that audience. And they get them fired up, they get them inspired, and they allow them to see greatness for that hour. Because what is a complaint that I see with universities? Oh, well, you're learning from people who aren't in the field. Well, that's why every Friday I want to bring someone who is in the field and they share their story for an hour. And of course, we'll probably have music beforehand, we'll have energy stuff, we'll make it a lot of fun, but I want them to be able to learn in an energetic environment. You know, people say, well, are you going to like make this virtual? Like, how are you going to make this school happen? I said, we are going to make it in person. We're going to make it in person because humans need to connect. And that is how we're going to stick out. Universities are going to make a significant shift the next 10 years. I mean, you're already seeing it. And so why not be the person that brings an experience, an energy, an impact that people say, you know what? I am sending my kid there no matter what. And so my goal is that people would rather send their kids to Warm Heart University over Yale, Harvard, Princeton, all these other schools, because they see that the students are actually learning from people who have what they want. They see that the students are in a positive environment. They see that the students are actually able to connect on work and work on skills that they need as they age, like how to communicate with someone, how to find loyal traits in a partner. All those things are very important.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to think about just that. You know, there's so many people that are going to go try to find passion and joy and will seek it out, but then they'll go to, you know, and I'm not saying I don't like the NFL. I watched the Broncos play the Washington Commanders. You know, I know Jose was there this week. There are two athletes who are on the field that I have coached. I love the sport, but at the same time, I love my life more than I love watching somebody else succeed at their life. I want them to succeed, but if I'm failing at the time, I can't afford to go run over and watch somebody else succeed, even though I want to so bad. I got to work on me. And if you got a place that's going to allow me to do that, a place that's going to allow me to expand and grow and use personal development, all these things that we long for, so I can be a better me. You know, I call it becoming the person. I have a universe called Becoming the Person Universe. But at the same time, is how do we do that? One of the things that I think that we might even end with some of this is you've mastered connection and mastered relationship. What advice would you give? Because I think that's where a lot of folks, even in the personal development space, don't do a lot of. Like, I can read 100 books and learn from 100 different people, but if I don't cultivate relationships, then I just have a whole bunch of knowledge in my head, right? And so what are some things that we can do in order to bridge that gap of personal development? Some people just need to start doing some personal development, but once somebody starts, how do we cultivate some of those relationships?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding that where the people are, the opportunities arise. So the people will give you the direction. So if you're depressed, what should you do? And I don't need a clinical background to be able to say what to do here. If you're depressed, you probably want to go to someone who is not, who can help guide you in the right direction. You're probably going to want to go to someone who maybe has been, but they did something different and they can help guide you in the right direction. But if you continue to stay in those depressive thoughts, it's going to be hard to have any other thoughts come to your mind. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those things. If you want to grow a business, okay, it's probably important to connect with someone who's grown a business, and that person can give you the next step to take. They may not tell you everything to do, but they can give you the next step. There's this book, The Alchemist, and I barely read the book because I understood the point right away. And I was like, this is genius. This is how you learn. You find something that you're trying to figure out, and then you go to someone, you get some direction, you go to the next person, you get some direction, go to the next person, you get some directions, you fail along the way, but then you learn from the failures. And it's like all of a sudden you start to realize that it's because you talk to the people that you were able to figure things out. So to answer your questions, how do you build better relationships? Well, we could talk about this for probably 3 hours,
Yeah,
but
easily.
I think the biggest thing is when I was 25 years old, I was fortunate enough to go to many events where this guy Andy Frisella was speaking at. And one thing he said was a game changer to me. He said people pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars to evaluate their business. And he says the same thing every time. You just got to care a little bit more.
I love it. I love it.
and,
Yeah.
and so I created the core values of my company based on that word. I didn't even have a product or service. It was care, create opportunities for yourself and others, active lifestyle, live that through your words and actions. So think about create opportunities. If you're constantly thinking about how to create an opportunity for yourself, but other people, it's going to be easy to develop better relationships. So I have a headquarters now. So we have events that create opportunities for people to come see my space and for me to meet people, but then other people can speak and they can maybe even make some money and have a successful event. So then when you think about active lifestyle, that doesn't just mean working out. That means it's having an active lifestyle with your words and actions. So an active lifestyle, if you're looking to build better relationships, it's like, okay, can I give one compliment a day? Imagine if you gave one compliment a day for 365 days. That is an active lifestyle in my mind. You're saying, hey, I want to build better relationships. What can I actively do on a consistent basis that could lead to better relationships? Well, maybe I can give one compliment a day. Last year, my personal goal was to send 365 thank you cards. I'm still getting the positive effects from sending those out, right? But that's the core value of Warm Heart Life. In 2023, I felt like I was getting around too many takers, like just people wanted. It's just got to a point where it's just too much. I said, let me go back to the roots of Warm Heart Life. And so I said, what can I actively do to build better relationships? And that's what I did. And then R stands for respect is earned, not just given. So you could be the nicest guy to me 9 times out of 10, but if that 10th time you're an asshole, how much respect do you think I have for you? So one thing I try and do revolved around that core value to build better relationships is to understand that if I don't treat this person in the way that they would want to be treated, then there's a chance they may never want to talk to me again. And so, what's an example of that? I'm constantly on calls. And so, if someone is paying me for advice, if someone's paying me to be a coach and I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm not giving them my all, there's a good chance that they could drop me. So, there's a lot of calls where I'm tired on and I can't show it. And so, that core value sticks with me all of the time. And then the last one is excel forward to get what it is that you want in life. So that's a lot of what we talked about in the beginning. It's like, if you want to develop better relationships, understand that just simply reaching out to people who have the things that you want and learning from those people, spending time with those people, you're going to start to naturally get around people who are doing big things and it's going to start to rub off on you. So the one that many of us learn when we're younger is you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most.
Mhm.
So when I think about some of the people I hang around the most, like I get to talk to a guy 3 days a week that is probably worth 100 to 500 million dollars. That's probably the guy I talk to the most. You know what I mean? And then my best friend in Stanford, he always shows up. I mean, this guy just always shows up to events, and that's something that really rubs off on me. Like I see him constantly showing up for other people. It makes me want to show up for other people. And so, yeah, that's how I could relate the last core value.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like you said, we could talk, we could literally just make a show just on connecting. But man, I feel like I just got in masterclass, like create opportunities for yourself and others. I think that's going to be like the theme of my networking thing that I have in my community, just because I'm going to steal it. Now you probably don't have those 5 words trademarked, so I'm in good shape. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh my gosh, if we just follow what you're talking about today, and what I think I love so much about what we talked about today, is it's practical things that people can do right now. It isn't this, sometimes I'll listen to Alex Hermosi, which is a phenomenal leader and, phenomenal entrepreneur, and we're probably a billionaire at this point. But some of the things I listened to, I was like, I'm not that person yet. I haven't created enough in me. My mind is there, but my habits and the things that I do on a daily basis haven't hit that level yet. And it's just, psh. But what you talked about today are things that I could go do right now, and my life would start to change. And so I thank you for doing that. I was selfish because I asked you the questions that I wanted to know so I could be a better human being. But I also want to give you the opportunity right now, anything that you didn't get to talk about that you wanted to, or please tell us how to get a hold of you, all that kind of stuff. I would love for you to share with us.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you never know who you're talking to until you get to know them, whether it's with dating, whether it's in the business world, whether it's with friendships or with family. And I think you would be surprised at the people that you talk to when you genuinely take time to get to know them. And I think if the viewers take one thing away from this entire podcast, curiosity is one of the best superpowers you could ever have in life. Curiosity about learning someone's story, curiosity about how to grow your business, curiosity about how to get better relationships. When you're curious, you start to allow things to come into your life, allow opportunities to happen, allow results to happen that would have never happened if you didn't explore that curiosity. And when we were sitting across from dinner, I mean, I could have listened to your stories for hours. The things that you've done in your life, the things that you've experienced in your life, from family to your athletic endeavors, to your business endeavors, to even your experience with Tesla. I mean, you're just such a fascinating guy. And I really, really hope people take that one thing away from this podcast, which is to explore curiosity, and you'd be amazed at the things that happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because the curiosity, and you said the B is, once you find something that you really enjoy with that curiosity, don't just stop there. Go find the best people, the top 10 people, and figure out ways to get in front of them. Because that's when that passion really is going to jump on you, because you're going to see, wow, this is how they did this. This is how, and we're not on this island where we don't have enough people to go see. Some of us, we just don't seek them out. Somehow we think that they're going to call us. Like I'm standing at home watching the best of the best, and they're going to call me at my house waiting. Yeah. No. Yeah, read their books, but go create that relationship. Oh my gosh, Brandon, thank you for being on today. Thank you for spending this hour. This can't be the last one we do. We got some fireside chats. We got some things. I can't even wait to come to your arena just to be part of it and the part of the things you're doing, because Ed used to tell me all the time, Ed Milet used to tell me all the time, he would tell us success leaves clues. Like every week he would say, Brian, success leaves clues, and what clue are you looking at right now? And Brandon, you're one of those people that we want to watch, that we want to see, we want to, I don't know how hard it is to get a hold of Brandon right now, but before he takes off where he has no time, this would be the time I would at least try. I promise you, if you show up in Connecticut where he's at, he's not going to just kick you down the curb. And so figure out a way to spend that time, watch this podcast over, take notes, read all this stuff. Again, subscribe. No, if this is the first one, we have so many good podcasts like this. Thank you again for being on. Do you have one final word? I know you got one final word that you could share with us before we leave today.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, you're listening to a podcast, you made it this far. What are you going to do with it? It's just like I asked my mentor, I said, why do most people not get what they want in life? He said, most people won't get what they want. Most people don't get what they want. Most people lay in bed at the end of their life with the look of regret on their face because they don't go after what they want fast enough. And so if there was one thing that you can act on after this podcast, start right now. And that's going to put you so far ahead of everybody else if you just keep riding off that momentum from that.
Thank you for that. I have no other words to say after that. Hey, don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you, allow him to. And we will see you all on the next one.